So I will be starting off today. My name, again, is Lieutenant Commander Renu. I work with Captain Brenda Stoddard and the rest of the SBIA team. I've been with the team since, I think, 2010, maybe. It's been a while. So in this presentation, I will be discussing SBIA, the program that brought you this great conference this week, and how you can leverage SBIA resources to educate yourself and to answer your questions. So we have a short little video here just to introduce our program.
The journey to develop and market a human drug can be long, complex, and filled with regulations. But FDA CDER Small Business and Industry Assistance, or SBIA, is here to help. SBIA provides education and answers to help all regulated pharmaceutical industries, not just small business, all over the world. What do we offer? Web resources for all your questions and training needs. The popular Regulatory Education for Industry, or REdI conferences. Free events that offer direct interaction with FDA subject matter experts and provides RAC credits. We offer free webinars to share FDA's knowledge and expertise, featuring live question and answer sessions, video and audio archives, and virtual attendance from anywhere in the world. We publish the CDER SBIA Chronicles, a brief e-newsletter and podcast that highlight a specific and timely regulatory topic. And we offer in-depth CDER Learn, web-based learning tutorials. Stay current by signing up for our listserv or connect via LinkedIn. Best of all, everything is free.
That's just a fun little animation that we use for our promo, just to kind of give you an overview, but we do so much more. So I'm going to go into all the details on what we do and how you can leverage our program. So today's presentation will focus on how SBIA can assist you. After listening to this presentation, you should be able to locate the SBIA web pages and identify 3 resources we provide that can help you. And then also understand how to register for events and find recordings for past events. I know some of you may have had the event forwarded to you or heard through word of mouth, but we want you to be able to go straight to the source and find out what else we offer and what's upcoming. So within CDER, just so you know where we are, CDER is a very large part of FDA. So within CDER, we've got the Office of Communications. Under the Office of Communications, there's 3 divisions, and one is our Division of Drug Information, under which our Small Business and Industry Assistance Program, or SBIA, resides. So FDA's philosophy is really that timely, interactive communication with sponsors during drug development is a core activity to help achieve our mission to facilitate the conduct of efficient and effective drug development programs. And ultimately, the goal is to enhance public health by making new, safe, and effective drugs available to the American public in a timely manner, that too. And we know that on industry side, it's not always easy. It's often very difficult to navigate the complex regulations, to navigate our website, just who to contact, how to reach someone. So the SBA is often the first stop for industry and industry stakeholders, small pharmaceutical business, to contact the agency. Our goal is to help small pharmaceutical business and industry navigate the wealth of information SBIA or FDA offers, and to assist in just understanding human product regulation. So our mission here is to ensure that industry stakeholders have immediate access to resources, education, and training, allowing for a more clearly informed and efficient drug development process, with the goal of approving safe and effective human drugs and biopharmaceuticals. And our vision is to serve as the premier educational source for industry on human drug and biopharmaceutical development and regulation. So we don't want industry to go and pay all this money for someone somewhere else to get. We want you guys to come to us. We offer it for free. You get it straight from the source. We have Q&A sessions with the expert. So we really want people to come to us. That's our overarching vision. And we really believe that with real-time support that for industry that you can be better informed. And this really, we hope that this really helps you and that you'll have more constructive interactions with FDA. So we often get the question, do I need to qualify to be a small business? Our name is Small Business and Industry Assistance. Can I see a show of hands? How many of you uh, feel that you need to meet certain criteria to contact us to take advantage of our program? So the answer is no, actually. We started off tailoring to small business, and we still do, but we don't turn large pharma away. A lot of you are from large pharma. Um, we know the small business needs that more hand holding. They don't have as much people, they don't have as much resources, but our program is open to everyone. We define small business as having 500 employees, including employees of affiliates, but we're really open to everyone. So you don't need to qualify by size. We help all of industry, but we do focus on small business. But the majority of people, actually over 50% that take advantage of our services are from large pharma, but that means that just under 50% are small pharma. So, and again, we want to reach people's eyes and ears. So that's why we want to kind of boost our advertising and find new ways to get in front of small pharma. So we really appreciate your feedback. So this map here represents one of our conferences from last year and just the attendees to all the conferences, to the conference. You can see people were awake as they are now all over the world. A lot of people from Asia, Europe, Africa, US, Canada. So, this is real-time attendance here on this map. So it just shows you where our reach is. It's about 30% global. So we really appreciate everybody that's online, all of you that are in the room, because we do reach a pretty wide range of audience. So I'm now going to review the various resources we offer, including direct communication services, our web pages, our training resources, and news and updates. So let's take a look at our direct communication services. This is one feature that I feel like a lot of people don't quite know about. You hear about the events, but you can call us, you can email us anytime. And if we're at work, we will respond. So we have a staff of over 40 pharmacists and healthcare professionals that answer direct inquiries from industry over the phone and over email. Last year alone, we responded to 5,000 inquiries. Here's our information. Um, and so we receive a wide variety of questions and we respond pretty quickly. Within a couple days, you'll hear from us. We are live people on the other end of the phone, on the other end of email. We have two of our staff joining us here that answer the phones. I respond to emails. So, if you have a question, please don't hesitate. Don't feel intimidated to contact us just because we're FDA. We're here to help you. And if we can't provide an answer right away, we will let you know that we're consulting a different group or direct you to the right place, but we will respond. You will always receive a response from us. And this service, again, is available to everyone. You don't have to qualify. As you know, a huge part of SBIA is our workshops and conferences, as you're at one right now. And we call all of these conferences collectively our Regulatory Education for Industry or REdI conferences. This just happens to be the REdI annual conference, kind of like the first one we started out with years ago. And so we typically have a hybrid format. As you know, there's people online where people can attend in person or online. During the public health emergency, during the pandemic, we were online only, but we've started getting back to in person. We appreciate you being here for that face-to-face interaction. In 2023, last year, we hosted 8 conferences and workshops and 22 webinars. That's a lot. So we do offer a lot, and I will show you where all of these are posted and where you can find the recordings. And we reached with those we reached over 95,000 people in 141 countries via all our training, our conferences, workshops, and webinars. That's a lot of people. And then we have people go back and look at our YouTube recordings as well. So it becomes a sort of repository. And last year, so to highlight some of these conferences, last year we held our 3rd annual collaboration with CDER's Office of Medical Policy for CITSI, our clinical investigator training course, which is always a huge success. This course was designed, it's an annual course, and this course was designed to help clinical trial industry for individuals involved with submissions and with regulatory and scientific issues, providing information about the development and approval of medical products. And we had over 23,000 total attendees, and we actually answered 231 live questions from the audience. So if this is something that interests you, just stay tuned with our events. It usually happens towards the end of the year. Another conference I'd like to highlight is our collaboration with the Office of New Drugs Division of Hepatology and Nutrition within CDER's Office of Immunology and Inflammation. This conference was geared towards a more niche audience where FDA wanted to learn whether these expert stakeholders have evidence to currently to indicate that currently available non-invasive tests are adequate to meet agency standards for assessing primary evidence of clinical efficacy. So we wanted to hear from the stakeholders. So that was a very innovative conference that we held. We also offer various types of continuing education credits, as you know, depending on the conference. Many of them offer credits to support RACs, so RAPS, SOCRA, SQA, and ACRP, and then some of them also offer continuing education to healthcare professionals. And then most, if not all, of our conferences and workshops are free, which is another perk, especially for small pharma. Have any of you attended our webinars? Okay, great. Yeah, we should see more hands in the future since now you know about them. So our webinars are online. You can register, again, you have to register and log in, but there still are Q&A sessions, your questions online. These are some examples of our recent webinars: expanding generic access, our Health Canada, joint US FDA, Health Canada, ICH public meetings, some other statistical considerations for pre-marketing risk assessment, integrated safety analyses and drug marketing applications, avoiding common mistakes. We have, like I said, we had like 22, 23 webinars last year. So this is something you can definitely take advantage of. You just need to know that when it's happening, what's happening, and I'll let you know how to find that out. And again, they're all recorded. So if there is one that you see that you're like, oh, I couldn't make it, I missed it, you can always go back and watch the recording. You just won't be able to get the credits. We have a great resource. You saw in the little animation, our newsletter, which we call the SBIA Chronicles. We produce a podcast with this, and we've got our podcast expert back there at the table. He's our expert editor, but we put a lot of time and work into these. We try to take complex topics and condense them and simplify them. And we make it easy. We started offering podcasts for those of you who commute to work or prefer listening that way. We do have a newsletter to go with it. We post them on LinkedIn, so you can read them right on there. So we try to make these things very accessible to you. And sometimes, you may not have time, or you may not know there's a new guidance out there, a new topic. Something we recently released on was considerations for nanoparticles. We released one recently on Bayesian statistical approaches for the evaluation of drug products. We had one on the FDA EMA Parallel Scientific Advice Program, the role of pharmacodynamic biomarkers and biosimilar drug developments. There's a lot of really in-depth topics, but we simplify them and we put them out there so you get a good overview. And then, of course, there's links for more information. So it's just another means by which we try to get that information out there to you. Sometimes it's just daunting when you see a topic and you don't know where to start. So it's kind of a starting point. And that's the website right there, fda.gov/CDER SBIA Chronicles. So our web pages, we're going to have a live demo right here. Our web pages are another means by which we reach out to industry and our industry stakeholders. So this here is our SBIA landing page. This is fda.gov/CDER SBIA. So please bookmark this if you don't. This is where you can learn about our upcoming events. So at the top of the page here, you'll see there's a calendar of events, and these are all of our upcoming events. So REdI is at the top, and we've got a few webinars coming up that I showed at the beginning. And we constantly populate these as we get the events coordinated. So make sure you bookmark this page. And again, you need to register for a lot of these events to get the credits. And then in the middle of the page, there's 4 boxes: regulatory references, SBIA learning training repository, SBIA on LinkedIn, and SBIA on YouTube. So if you click on regulatory references, this is essentially a database of regulatory information. So they're web pages. I know a lot of people, including me, get lost in the FDA website. Just you don't know where to start. You go to the search engine and you don't know where to go from there. So you end up going to Google. And, we want you to get the right information. Don't go to Dr. Google all the time. So this is, we've curated these web pages, and you can search by, you can filter them by topic. So, if you want to go to like drug safety recalls, you can go there and you'll find web pages related to that. Or you can use the search box, or you can use a combination of both to find what you're looking for. So this is a really good resource for just information. They're not trainings, it's just information. And then if you go to our next box is SBIA Learn, you'll hear that term, SBIA Learn Online Training Repository. And this is where you will find all the recordings of our conferences, our webinars. You'll also find our podcasts, anything multimedia. You'll find our CDER Learn courses. So we have some courses for training. You'll find this all here. And if you search, you can look by type. So there's a drop down. By type of training. So if you're looking for a conference, or you're looking for a past webinar, you'll find it here. Or you can go by topic. And this is a very long drop down. So when we first created this web page a couple years ago, we had less information, but like I said, we have like 30 events a year. So as you can imagine, this has grown exponentially in the past 5 years. So, we're trying to find a way to better manage this information. As you can tell, we are using all of you this conference to provide feedback on a lot of different things. And this is one thing that we would like your feedback on. So we're thinking of revising this web page and how to best revise it. So one thought we had was to maybe turn it into a sort of curriculum, so you could choose, like, if you're a beginner in the field, or if you are intermediate or an expert, depending on what your level of competency is, start by choosing that. Because if you're an expert, you don't want that basic information. If you're just starting off, the complicated information, you'll be lost, right? So maybe starting off with that, and then having different tiers of filters. So right now, if you scroll down, if you wanted to find something on clinical trials, so click clear filters, and then under topic, go down to clinical trials and research. Okay, now scroll down. Let's see how many entries there are. There are 77 entries. How do you filter through that? When we started this webpage, there were not 77 entries. So we're thinking maybe to make some tiers. Like first you choose new drug development, then you choose clinical trials, then you could choose like something like adaptive trials, or something specific. So different tiers to kind of get you to where you want, in addition to your level of expertise. So we were thinking of doing something like that. We're still trying to figure out what to do, different ideas, and we would love your feedback. So I think we're done with the demo. So we have another poll for you. And so for those of you that are online, please take this poll. And those of you in the room, I'd like to see a show of hands. So the question is, would CDER SBIA Learn be more helpful? And again, this is the repository of trainings, multimedia information. Would it be helpful if there was an option to A, filter by multiple tiers of topics, like I just suggested, by competency level, and by topics broad to specific, maybe 3 different buckets? Would it be helpful to filter by, I'm sorry, and then would it be helpful to filter by competency level, like basic, intermediate, advanced? And then finally, C, would it be helpful to have both? So please online, take a minute to do this poll, and we're going to look at this feedback. How about in the room? How many of you feel A just by the multiple tiers of topics? 1, 2, 4. Okay. And how about B by competency level? Okay. And how about both? Okay. Okay, that's really helpful. Yeah, we want to make this as helpful as it can be to you. And I think those of you involved with websites and things know that information management can get out of control when you keep adding to it. So we want to be able to organize it better. But I appreciate your feedback. And if anybody has additional ideas that you want to talk to us about this, about our graphics, we have prizes. We have SBIA prizes. So the first person to find me during a break will get the prize if you can provide me with some feedback. Oh, okay. So going back to if you had gone back to our landing page, fda.gov/SBIA, we also have a box for YouTube. So this is our YouTube playlist. And after this conference, if you want to go back and, and look at another recording or share it, even share it on your social media feed with your company or your colleagues, you can do that. We have, since I think it was 2019, we started posting everything on YouTube. So it's been great because you can share, which is the best thing. We can track to see who's viewing it, what people are interested in. So you can, if you go to the FDA if you go to this box on CDER SBIA and click on the YouTube Learning Library, this will bring you to the YouTube playlist. But also if you go directly to YouTube, type in Food and Drug Administration, and then click on playlists, and you'll see all the SBIA playlists with our branding here, the blue and orange. There's one for each year, so 2024 going back to 2017, I think it is. So we try to make them available about 2 weeks after the event. It takes a little bit of time to get them up, but again, you can share these. You can, it's a YouTube link, so it makes it really easy. And we post a lot, and you can go through and browse past recordings as well. Again, if you go through the past YouTube links, you won't get the credits like the CEs and the certificates, but it's great information, even to use as training for your members of your companies, to filter that out and find the appropriate trainings if you went to a really good course and there's a new employee that can help them, take advantage of this. And then we've got LinkedIn. So on that main page for SBIA, there's also a link to our LinkedIn. How many of you, out of curiosity, follow us on LinkedIn? Okay. And how many of you learned about this conference on LinkedIn? Oh, wow. Okay, great. Yeah, we do a lot of advertising on LinkedIn as well. We try to go outside of our followers. We started off obviously with 0 followers. I don't remember when, but it was probably about 10 years ago. And now we're up to over 38,000, 40,000, something like that. And we use LinkedIn to push out information about our events. We use LinkedIn to push out information about new guidances, regulatory initiatives. We post these fun little polls before events, and that actually gives us information. The speakers get information about, what do people know? What do they not know? So please join us on LinkedIn, follow us, and you won't be sorry. You'll get a lot of information, and share it with your colleagues if they are not on as well. We also send out email updates via our listserv, I guess. How many of you are on our listserv? Okay, so you guys should all sign up for that. It's another way. If you're a more traditional email, I know this nowadays people want all the social media, but if you're more traditional email, you'll get everything right to your inbox. Same types of things: conference updates, news, industry updates, webinars. You get everything right to your inbox. So it's a great resource to have. So that brings us to our challenge question. Challenge question number 1. In which of the SBIA resources can you find a database of searchable FDA web pages relating to drug development? A, regulatory references. This is referring to the boxes on our webpage. B, SBIA Learn online repository. C, calendar of upcoming events. Or D, SBIA Learning on YouTube. And again, this is searchable FDA web pages relating to drug development. Oh, I guess in the room we need a show of hands. A. Okay. B. C. And D. Okay. Well, the answer is A, regulatory references. The SBIA Learn online training repository is those recordings and those multimedia resources. But regulatory references is the web pages that can give you information. And which of the following statements is not true? You can stay connected with the latest regulatory information and offerings by subscribing to the SBIA listserv and following SBIA on LinkedIn. Industry stakeholders may call or email SBIA directly. SBIA services are only available to companies with less than 500 employees. Or D, SBIA offers free conferences, workshops, and webinars on various regulatory topics. So how many of you choose A as being not true? B? C? Yay. D. Okay. Yeah, like I said, we're available to everybody. These are just some of our QR codes. We also have little exhibit postcards out on our exhibit table right outside the door that have all these QR codes. Again, this is to our webpage, our SBIA Learn, YouTube, LinkedIn, and our email updates, so you can get all of those. And if you just go to our fda.gov/CDER SBIA, you'll get links to all of these right there. So I hope that I've enlightened you with some new information. I think I have, because just by the show of hands and the poll questions. I hope you'll be able to leverage us better as a resource. All of our programs, again, are geared towards educating industry across the entire spectrum of drug development. So here I'm going to leave you with some action items. When you leave here today, I know you're going to have an onslaught of information and it's going to be hard, but please make it a point to try to follow through and do these. So email or call SBIA with your regulatory questions. Don't be hesitant. We're real live people on the other end. You're not going to go on some blacklist or record for contacting FDA. We will help you as best as we can. And again, there's our email and our phone numbers. Bookmark our websites. They're very useful. Browse our playlists on YouTube, share them on your social media channels, share them with your colleagues, incorporate them into your training curriculum for your employees, and follow us on LinkedIn. And again, share it with your colleagues. And then subscribe to the SBIA listserv, which is the email updates. So another poll for those of you online, I'd like you to use the open-ended box to answer this question. So whether you have any different suggestions for improvement for our SBIA Learn webpage. So this is just one thing we've thought of. Maybe you can think of something even better, something different, something to enhance our initial idea to help make this a curriculum for industry. We won't be able to project the responses, but we will be looking at this feedback, so we really appreciate it. And for those of you in person, please share it with me sometime today. I'm around during all the breaks. I'm just back there. I'll be moderating all day. So please find me or find Captain Brenda Stoddard. She's right there. So find her, any of us at the SBIA table, you can share your feedback. And the first person to do so gets a prize. So play around with our SBIA Learn website during your breaks and just let us know your feedback. So with that, I can take any questions. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let me find our speaker information for our next two speakers. Okay, so our first two speakers after me are Dr. Allison Karish and Susan Patty, and they will provide a brief background on FDA's informed consent requirements and discuss proposed revisions to make informed consent more understandable for potential participants with reference to the new draft guidance on key information and facilitating understanding in informed consent. Dr. Allison Koresh is currently director in the Division of Clinical Trial Quality within CDER's Office of Medical Policy. She also served as pediatric team leader in CDER's Division of Pediatric and Maternal Health. And Susan Patty is a regulatory counsel with the Office of Clinical Policy and the Office of the Commissioner, where she addresses policy for the clinicaltrials.gov data bank, clinical trial design, and informed consent. Let's turn our attention over to our speakers.
Good morning. Thanks, Renu. Hope everyone has their coffee and ready to go. I'm Allison Karish. I am a senior clinical advisor in the Office of Medical Policy at FDA. And with me today is Suzanne Patty, regulatory counsel in the Office of the Commissioner, also at the FDA. And we're going to talk to you about key information in informed consent. So, there we go. So standard disclaimers, these views are our own and we have nothing to disclose. Learning objectives. So by the end of this presentation, you should be able to describe the purpose of informed consent, describe how two provisions in FDA's proposed rule can improve consent materials, explain what a key information section is, and describe tools that can improve organization and understanding of informed consent. Before we get into it, I do have one note. This is a high-level overview, so please see FDA regulations and guidances for specifics. Now, to meet those objectives, that's a lot to learn, and you probably have some questions already. So it is a good thing that Suzanne and I have answers. All right, so the first question we sometimes get, what is informed consent? It's something that sponsor, investigator, and IRBs are all responsible for, but what's it mean? So in August 2023, FDA published a guidance on informed consent that goes over all the specifics in detail. But at a high level, informed consent is providing information so a potential study participant can make an informed decision about whether or not to participate in a study. It's helping a person understand the study, providing the person with an opportunity to ask questions and get answers. It's obtaining and then documenting the person's voluntary agreement to participate in the study. And importantly, informed consent doesn't stop there. Informed consent includes providing information during the study itself. So what is the informed consent process? It's an ongoing exchange of information with each prospective participant. As I mentioned, informed consent does not end after the person agrees to participate. For example, if a protocol changes, additional information can be given, and participants may need more time to ask questions and get answers. Similarly, if new safety information becomes available, participants may need to sign another informed consent form to continue in the study, even though they signed an informed consent form at the beginning of the study. So that brings us to our first challenge question. Who is responsible for informed consent? A, the sponsor. B, the clinical investigator. C, the IRB. D, the participant. E, all of the above. Or F, A through C. I'll give everyone a moment to think about it. The answer is F. The sponsor, the clinical investigator, and the IRB are all responsible for informed consent. All right, so another question that we sometimes hear, what are the elements of informed consent? The informed consent process and consent form must include the basic elements of informed consent. If appropriate to the clinical investigation, one or more additional elements of informed consent must also be addressed. For applicable clinical trials, another element of informed consent, a specified statement regarding clinicaltrials.gov, is also required. And certainly, an informed consent document should include any other information the sponsor or investigator thinks is important to include. And you can find these at 21 CFR 50.25. So, the basic elements. There are 8 basic elements of informed consent that must be provided. My sense is that most of y'all are familiar with these, so I will go through them quickly. First, a description of the clinical investigation. This should include a clear statement that the reason to participate will be to contribute to research rather than to their own medical treatment. And the duration includes not only during active participation, but also any long-term follow-up. I want to mention that not only procedures related to study participation should be discussed, but if there are procedures that would be considered part of usual clinical care that wouldn't be performed on study participants, that should be discussed too. Second, a description of any reasonably foreseeable risks or discomforts to the participant. Sometimes people forget that discomforts part. For example, the consent form should disclose that the person may be uncomfortable having to stay in one position or may experience claustrophobia-like symptoms during an MRI. I want to also mention that if unanticipated risks are reported during the investigation, the informed consent discussion and documents may need to be updated with this additional information. Third, a description of any benefits to the participant or to others which may be expected from the research. Fourth, a disclosure of appropriate alternative procedures or courses of treatment, if any, that might be advantageous to the participant. This information includes appropriate alternatives available to the person, including a description of the care they would likely receive if they chose not to participate in the study. Fifth, a statement describing the extent, if any, to which confidentiality of records identifying the person will be maintained. And it needs to note the possibility that the FDA may inspect the records. Six, for research that involves more than minimal risk, the informed consent must describe any compensation and medical treatments available to participants if injury occurs. Seventh, the consent must provide information on how to contact an appropriate person for questions about the study and the participant's rights. And also, the contact information must include if a research-related injury to the participant were to occur. The last basic element requires that people be informed that they may decline to take part in the study or may stop participating at any time without penalty or loss of benefits to which participants are entitled. Please keep in mind that states or local institutions can provide more protections and may have other rules. As I mentioned earlier, in addition to the basic elements, there are additional elements, which are listed here, that need to be included when applicable. I again encourage you to read the FDA guidance on informed consent as it discusses all the elements, basic and additional, in detail. Now, that would definitely be a lot of information to put in a consent form. So please try to not write a book, and bear in mind that longer consent forms can really limit understanding. Try to avoid making the informed consent seem like a complex legalistic form, and avoid high reading levels that can hinder comprehension. These suggestions are to help prospective participants make informed decisions and prevent them from becoming overwhelmed. So that brings us to the third question we sometimes hear. How does informed consent relate to the conference title, Innovation in Medical Product Development? And for that answer, I'm going to turn it over to Suzanne. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you. Thank you, Allison. Thank you. Can you guys hear me? I can't hear myself. Cool. Thank you. Allison, thanks for the introductions. And it's great to be here with you guys today. Thank you. Yes, FDA is adopting and proposing some provisions that will be new to help improve informed consent. FDA published a proposed rule in September of 2022 called the Protection of Human Subjects and Institutional Review Boards. This will provide some new changes to parts 50 and 56. The provisions we're going to talk to you today come from the Revised Common Rule, which is handled by the Office for Human Research Protections, or OHRP. This office is part of Health and Human Services as well as FDA. In March, we published a new informed consent joint draft guidance with OHRP, and this draft guidance talks more about the two provisions we'll share with you today. And it was prepared by a group of FDA experts with multiple product centers, as well as OHRP. We also consulted with patient representatives for further input. These provisions are both intended to help people decide whether to join a study. The first provision is that the consent must begin with key information. The second provision is that the whole consent must be organized and presented to help facilitate understanding. These both will help people determine whether they want to join a study. Your first question, I'm sure, is what is key information? Key information consists of critical or key information about the study. The consent must begin with key information. This includes written, electronic, or the oral consent process. The information in this provision will explain the study and the reasons why someone may wish to join the study. It also should be concise and focused. It also must be organized to facilitate comprehension. This is actual regulatory language. And if the FDA's proposed rule is finalized as we've proposed it, these will become part of FDA's regulations. Let's turn to the content of the key information. The draft guidance we mentioned examines what type of information from the informed consent elements that Allison just shared with you. We looked first at these required basic elements. We also considered the additional elements, and we looked at what information may be appropriate beyond the elements of consent. For example, what information is collected about participants as part of research if they're in a research registry study? That's an example that might be better for a registry study than a clinical trial. All right. Now let's turn to a key information example. In the guidance at the very end, we included a 2-page example, and I'm going to walk you through the concepts first, and then we'll share with you the visual. So we think it's helpful, since this is new, to put in a statement about key information. This would help the participants know what they're now looking at. Secondly, we think it's really important that you remind participants up front that the request for them to participate is voluntary. And third, a nice crisp description of the research and its purpose is good for starters as well. We also believe that the key information should include both some information about risks and discomforts, as well as potential benefits. For example, critical information about risks and discomforts could state that the researchers do not know if the study drug will have side effects. The study drug also may not help the participant. Note that the key information should only include the main concepts about risks, not all risk information, because that could be quite lengthy. More information about the risks could be included in the body of the consent form. The key information also should include information about potential benefits. These should be clear, straightforward, and balanced as well. And the information about benefits should not be overly optimistic. Additional topics that could be addressed include information about the duration and the procedures. For example, this could include a brief statement about the length of the trial and procedures that may be performed, such as blood draws or an MRI. Information about whether any compensation and treatment may be provided if the person is injured also should be included. This statement could address whether the trial will cover treatments as well. And finally, another possible option could be to include other alternative procedures that may be appropriate for the participant in the trial. We encourage the participant to read the entire consent and to seek more information with their physicians about what's appropriate for them, and also with the research team. Question 5. What is not key information? Key information is not intended to be used in place of the consent process. Rather, it can be used to help guide the discussion about consent. It is not a change in the responsibilities for preparing or administering the consent. And it also is not a one-size-fits-all approach for every single study. Rather, we encourage you to look at different considerations for the different types of trials that are being done. We also strongly encourage you to consult with patient groups and communities for their input as well into what might be appropriate from their perspective for the key information section. Question 6, how can consent materials be prepared to help people better understand a study? This brings us to the second new provision in the regulations, proposed provision. This provision addresses facilitating understanding of consent. And in this provision, it states that the whole consent must present research information in sufficient detail, must be organized to help facilitate the participants' understanding of why they may want to participate or not participate. And the consent, I think I did that one already, hold on. Here is an example that we put into the guidance. I recognize that you can't read the words, so this is more to introduce you to the concepts that we embraced here. We did include the boxes we just shared on the other slides, like key information and voluntary participation. However, there are many ways that this key information section can be designed to help people understand the study. The working group prepared recommendations for designing the study using tools and tips that can aid with understanding. In this slide, we show you an example from the guidance. Rather than, again, you can use this way or we can talk about other ways. The main thing here is it's a relatively simple approach and it's a relatively simple trial that we used for the example. So we didn't want to get bogged down in the details. One of the key things that the working group looked at was an article conducted by some FDA staff and a third party that talked about how presentation of information may affect the ability of consumers to understand labeling for prescription drugs. In this research study, FDA found that consumers understood key information better, understood the prescription labeling better when it was provided in a simple format with information grouped together within a defined border. The working group, the article folks called this bubbles. And the bottom line is that the bubble format actually really worked and it improved comprehension. It was compared to an OTC labeling document and the MedGuide document. So now I'll talk through the example that I just shared and talk about the design tips that we took from this article, but also from plain language guidance that the government often encourages people to use. Here you see that we have used the bubble format, and that is having information grouped together in distinct chunks, which are easier to digest or easier to understand. We've limited the example to a few pages. We placed the risks and benefits side by side on the first page. We also used bullet points to help use simpler phrasing. We have encouraged the use of hyperlinks to the rest of the document or page numbers. We use simple text wherever possible. We also use white space or empty space to help break up the thick mass of text we often see as we're reading a lot of documents. And we also encourage breaking these bullet points and the chunks into 2 different columns. Question 7, is there only one way to prepare a key information section? No, of course. Please consider multiple approaches. We really want you to be creative and innovative to prepare this, and when you're organizing the whole consent. We encourage the use of video, graphics, as well as electronic consent. And again, we really encourage you to consult with patient groups and communities when you're developing this key information section. And after you've prepared the whole consent, it's also a good idea to consult with them to make sure it actually does what we're hoping it will do, which is improve comprehension. I also wanted to remind you that FDA published a joint draft guidance in 2016 for electronic consent. This was published as well with OHRP. And the document talks about the use of technology to improve participants' understanding, including diagrams and images. Like the written consent materials, we encourage you to target the information to the audience you have in mind, taking into consideration their age, their comprehension level, and perhaps their English proficiency or their health literacy is also critical. Why are these new consent provisions important? These provisions are actually important for several reasons, and they can improve more than just the consent information. They can help improve better understanding for the participants. That is really the bottom line. That's critical for what we're doing here. Using these tools can also help the presenter convey information more clearly. The information portrayed in these ways can help give the participant a useful resource they can take home. And actually, it can help improve enrollment, help retain participants, and increase diversity. We really think once you have, we know that enrollment is the hardest, longest part of doing a clinical trial. So doing better enrollment, perhaps more efficiently, hopefully, this can really help you in the long run. Question 9, what's next? Our next steps are that FDA must publish the final rule. Right now, it's just a proposed rule, and we're working hard to get the final rule published in as quickly as the government can work, but we're really working hard on it. We also received multiple comments on many things in the proposed rule that we have to answer in the final rule. We also will go ahead and work with OHRP, our sister agency, to finalize the guidance. And we will be looking at the nearly 100 comments that were received on this guidance when it was published in March. Would you like to know more about informed consent? Here's a list on the slide with hyperlinks for the FDA resources. Today, we talked to you about the FDA's informed consent guidance that was issued last August, and this is the main consent information document. We also encourage you to look at our key information and facilitating understanding in consent, which was the draft guidance we just published in March. We also have a link here for the electronic consent guidance for more information there. Here is a link for FDA's regulations about informed consent, which are in 21 CFR Part 50. And here's a link for the FDA's proposed rule on protection of human subjects. Again, it was issued in 2022 and has a great information in it. Challenge question B. Which of the following statements about key information is true? A, the consent form must begin with key information. B, key information must include all basic and additional consent elements. C, key information must use bubbles, 2 columns, and white space. D, key information must be limited to 2 pages. Or E, nothing specific is required. I'll go ahead with the room. Does anyone in the room think A, the consent form must begin with key information, is the true statement? Okay. How about B, key information must include all basic and informed basic and additional consent elements? Okay. Key information must use bubbles, columns, and white space. Key information must be limited to 2 pages. Or key information, there are no specific regulatory requirements on key information. The right answer is A. The regulations say that key information must be at the beginning of informed consent. Thank you. We have a bonus question. Who is responsible for key information? A, the sponsor. B, the clinical investigator. C, the IRB. D, the participant. E, all of the above. Or F, A through C. All right, I'm going to go ahead to the answer. It's F, A through C. And the bottom line here is that the responsibilities for preparing consent, including the key information, has not changed. The regulatory requirements have not changed about who is responsible. The sponsor, the clinical investigator, and the IRB are all involved and responsible for preparing the key information section. Our main takeaways today are, again, key information must be presented first. The key information and the whole consent must be organized. We also, again, want you to be clear and concise. We don't want to read books when patients are coming to talk to you about consent. We also encourage innovation about the content and the approaches. Finally, we really suggest acting now. They're already in the proposed rule. We encourage you to just go for it. It's already required, frankly, in the revised common rule, which applies to federally funded research. Start adding the key information section and start improving approaches to the whole consent and process now. At this time, thank you, and we will go ahead and move over to questions. Thanks.
If you guys can line up at the mics for your questions in the room, and then we'll alternate with questions online. Does anybody have any questions for our presenters? Nothing? Oh, we've got one.
I was just wondering, to what extent have you collaborated with other health authorities on the development of this guidance in terms of what simple language looks like?
Thank you. So we have received comments from other regulatory authorities, but this guidance was done primarily from FDA and OHRP's perspective. But when we were looking at the ICH E6, which is the Good Clinical Practice Guidance, that was an international project, and we do have some language in there about the importance of clear and concise information about informed consent, as well as consulting with the participants and stakeholders. Thank you for that question.
Satya Ganeshan from UCB. Is there any requirement for putting information for access for their own data by the participants should they need it, or how do you inform them of that if they need that information?
Thank you for that question. You asked about whether the consent could include information about how participants themselves may access their data. This would be an example of what may be appropriate additional information. And it's not addressed in the regs, but it is something that may be appropriate to include, and it could go into the key information section as well as the main consent. Thank you.
Do we have any online questions?
A question directed to Dr. Koresh. How do we approach consenting subjects for research that use an app that requires subjects another consent to collect sensitive info like geolocation or attitudes?
I'm sorry. So the question was, How do we get in consent when you're using another app?
Yes. How do we approach consenting subjects for research that use an app which requires subjects to consent to collect sensitive information like geolocation?
Collecting sensitive information.
So so if the sensitive information is being collected, that's part of the consent. And it doesn't matter if it's being collected because they self-report where they are or because they have holding a device in their pocket when they travel, right? So sensitive information is consent information that has to be included no matter how that, in this case, geolocation data is going to be collected.
Thank you.
Do we have any more online questions?
Sure. Is key information required for all studies or only certain studies, or studies initially IRB approved after a certain date?
Great question. So the question was, is key information required for all studies or just certain studies? So just to reiterate what Suzanne said, if it falls under the revised common rule, it's required now. If the study falls under FDA regs, it's under the proposed rule, so it's not required yet. If the proposed rule for FDA was finalized as it currently stands, then it would match the revised common rule. That's intentional and deliberate, right? Want to try to harmonize this whenever possible. So if it becomes required for FDA studies, and now when it's required for OHRP and the revised common rule, it's all studies. There is no caveat where if you're only enrolling a small number of patients or participants, or you're only having a limited number of sites or something, no, there won't be carve-out exceptions as is currently proposed. Anything you would add?
No, good.
Go ahead, Nora.
Thank
Do
you.
we have
Another
any more?
question. This was addressed to Suzanne. Is the same type of approach expected for other types of consent form? For example, pregnancy consent or optional testing consents?
Thank you for the question. I believe you asked if this type of approach is appropriate for other types of consent, like for pregnant people. And the answer is the key information section must be included and the consent must begin with that. We want you to be creative about the approaches. So how you do it is really open and up to you guys. What's most appropriate for pediatrics may be different than a geriatric community. Thanks.
And with pregnant people in particular, the known teratogenicity, the known side effects or harm of the drug could impact whether or not it rises to the level of key information or not.
Thank you.
Great. It looks like we have a question in the room.
Hello, my name is Sherry Lee. I'm from Premier Regulatory Consulting. I had a question about implementation. So when you have a final rule, how long do you expect clinical trials to start implementing it?
Thank you for the question. The question is, how long will it take for the information to be required once the proposed rule is, once it's finalized and published? Usually there is a certain date within the final rule for proposing for the actual finalization. I'm not sure. It will depend. It might be 90 days, 60 days or 90 days.
That's part of why we're getting the word out now and why Suzanne stressed start now, right? The idea is that this is a good thing, right? And so there shouldn't be delay. People, this audience and everybody else should think, gosh, if this might help study participants, let's do it now, right? So that's the impetus, even though it may not be required yet.
It also has been out there now since 2017 when the revised common rule was finalized. I realize that's for federally funded research, but the word's been getting out and we're pleased to issue this guidance now so that you can help prepare your consent forms in the way that will be appropriate once the final rule comes out.
Thank you. Do we have any more online questions?
Yes. Can you please provide or let us know where to find a Microsoft Word template for the bubble form of the informed consent?
So thanks for the question about the template and the bubble formats. You don't have to follow that exact format, but if you do, there are ways you can prepare the bubbles. I found them in the shapes section, as well. And you can put the text within those shapes. So it'll automatically
And I
shuffle the size of the bubble.
I want to reiterate what you just said. It's not intended to be a template. What's in the draft guidance is an example. And we really strongly encourage industry and sponsors and investigators to innovate and to think of other ways that it could be presented that might be even better. But it's an example. It doesn't have to be followed by any means.
Thanks.
Any more questions?
Dr. Crash again. Does a consent form which is less than 5 pages require key elements?
Thank you for that question. Does the consent form that is less than 5 pages require the key elements? Yes. As Allison mentioned, those required elements are in the regulations now and have been for many years. And whatever the length of the consent form is, it has to have all of those elements. That said, maybe for a simple study, you could do a shorter key information section. And if the key information section includes all of those required elements, that could be sufficient for the consent form. So it could be as short as a couple pages. I know that's not realistic all the time, especially for FDA regulated products, but brevity does help with comprehension. Thank you.
I think that's all the time we have for questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next two speakers, Jonathan Resnick and Seom Sine, will be providing us with an FDA eCTD V4 implementation update and a CDER NextGen portal update. Jonathan Resnick is a project management officer in the Division of Data Management and Services and Solutions within the Office of Business Informatics in CDER's Office of Strategic Programs. And Seom Sine also works in the same office as Mr. Resnick in Supervisory Operations Research. I'd like to give a welcome to our speakers.
Okay. So this morning I'll be talking about our FDA eCTD version 4.0 implementation update. We are busy getting ready to start accepting this 4.0 standard. So the learning objectives for this morning's presentation are: number one, understand the fundamental eCTD 4.0 concepts, be able to discuss FDA's eCTD 4.0 implementation strategy, and know how to prepare for eCTD 4.0 in your organization. So I start with the goals for eCTD 4.0. Looking at ICH's eCTD 4.0 implementation guide, it talks about some of the key business drivers. And this is not an exhaustive list, just some of them, but document reuse, the ability to do more with document and metadata lifecycle, the ability to use management of context groups. And I'm going to get into each of these in the following slides. So let's start with the concepts. So first of all, in eCTD 4.0, there's a backbone file, just like there is in today's version 3.2.2. But in 4.0, it's just a single backbone file for the submission. And it's called submissionunit.xml. And it contains the eCTD metadata for all the modules. The harmonized modules, which are modules 2 through 5, as well as the regional module, which is module 1. Now, in addition to that, FDA has been using what's called study tagging files, stf.xml files, to capture metadata around studies as well. That information is going to be rolled up into the submissionunit.xml file as well. Now, on to document reuse. Once a document is submitted, the document can be reused by referencing its unique identifier from the same or different submission unit or sequence. So what is this all about? When you submit a file for the first time in your eCTD submission, your eCTD publishing tool is going to be able to assign a unique document identifier to it. And underneath that unique document identifier, it's going to have information like what you want the title of the document to look like on the regulatory authority side. What's the path to that file? It also gives you the ability to update that document title later on if you need to. Now, eCTD 4.0 also brings around this concept of context of use. Now, for those of you that are very familiar with 322, there's vocabulary that's called leaf and leaf element and leaf title. In eCTD 4.0, it's called context of use and context groups. So what is this about? Context of use is about placing a document within the table of contents heading and section. It provides information regarding the usage of the document and its life cycle. And then the keyword gives additional information about the context of use. So what you see on the bottom of the screen is an example of a context of use, and that's in purple, where it has heading 3.2S2 manufacturer. The information in green are keywords, and these are sender-defined keywords. So the applicant is actually defining what the name of the manufacturer is and so forth. We take this a step further when we talk about a context group. So the combination of the context of use, which is the predefined ICH heading for a section, and the keyword, which is the sender-defined keyword that goes with that heading, you get a context group. And so the example here are two context of uses. I've got context of use X and context of use Y. And you'll notice everything is the same about these except for the manufacturer, right? You see context of use X has 3.2S2 manufacturer. That's the predefined ICH heading in module 3. Context of use Y is using that exact same predefined heading. The substance is the same, but they differ on manufacturer. And then what happens is over on the regulatory authority side, when they're looking at this submission in their eCTD viewer, they're going to see two 3.2S2 manufacturer headings, but the reviewer will be able to distinguish them by that keyword information that's inside. eCTD4 also brings about the concept of group title. What does this do? What happens is currently with eCTD 3.2.2, you place documents at the lowest level of the predefined heading. With eCTD 4.0, it adds flexibility. So if you have multiple documents, like this example, where we have document title 1 all the way through document title 6, instead of them being all grouped together directly under M32P7 container closure blister, the applicant is able to further define categories at that lowest level. Group title 1, group title 2. Of course, the applicant can name those group titles whatever they want. eCTD4 also brings about the concept of priority number. Today in eCTD 3.2.2, regulators don't always see your documents in the order that you send them in. So yes, they are going to see all the documents under the heading that you tell them to be under, but they may not be listed in a certain order. It just depends on the eCTD viewer program that they're using. With eCTD 4.0, it allows applicants to actually define, be explicit about the order of the documents under a particular heading. In addition to that, because it allows that ordering, it also allows you to come back in a later sequence and change the order if you need to. I'm going to skip over this. I already covered document identifier. Now, being able to update document information is another key real benefit of eCTD4. So in this example, the applicant made a typo in the document title. So what's the typo? They put manufact instead of manufacturing. So on the left is sequence 1 with this typo. With eCTD 4.0, they're able to do a very efficient update of the document title without having to life cycle the document. It's a really big advantage. Today, if you make a mistake on the document title, or we call it leaf title in 3.2.2, in order to fix it, you have to actually use life cycle of delete and delete it out, and then re-reference the document again as new to fix that title. And of course, that breaks up the whole life cycle train there. In a similar way, you can update display name values. So what are the display name values? those are the actual values you see from the keywords. So you see in sequence 1, the applicant had sent something in and they have ACE manufacturer as the keyword. And then they need to change that in sequence 2. They can do that simply by just using their eCTD publishing tool to indicate that they're changing the display name value of a particular keyword. They don't have to delete all the documents under the heading like they do today and resubmit them. Document lifecycle is another benefit that we have. So currently with 322, we have the ability to do document lifecycling, but you can only do one-to-one. With eCTD4, you can not only do one-to-one, right? We keep that, but you can do many-to-one and one-to-many. So it really adds a lot more flexibility in terms of what you're doing. And what happens here is behind the scenes, the regulatory authority will be able to see the linkages between these actions. So on the bottom there, on the bottom left, I just have an example here where the applicant's submitting a document in sequence 2 that's replacing 3 documents that were previously submitted in sequence 1. And the reviewer or the regulatory project manager on the FDA side, they would be able to see that linkage, that association, even if you don't say anything about it in the document or in your cover letter. So I just threw a lot of information at you. I'm going to pause here for a minute, and we're going to go with our first challenge question. An eCTD 4.0 sequence contains a harmonized submission unit message called submission unit.xml. Do we think that's A, true, or B, false? I'm going to give you a second to think about it. It's true. Let's go to our second challenge question. eCTD4 document lifecycle functionality allows A, one-to-one, B, one-to-many, C, many-to-one, or D, all of the above. If you're thinking D, you are absolutely correct. All right, so now let's shift gears directly into our FDA implementation strategy for being able to accept these eCTD4 based submissions. It begins at the ICH level, right? FDA is implementing something that was developed at ICH. So obviously the ICH materials need to be ready to go. And they are. And they have been actually for a few years. So number one, all the ICH specifications about eCTD 4.0 and materials such as questions and answers and change requests and code lists, even dates for different regulatory authorities around the world about when they're planning to accept eCTD4 submissions can all be found on the ICH page. Now, I have a QR code on the top of this slide to make it easy, but also at the end of this slide deck, I actually have the URL to the ICH page where you can get this information. Now, there are recent updates that were just completed this month in May, and they're going to post up on the ICH page either tomorrow or it could be next week. And that's version 1.6 of the implementation guide and version 1.6 of the code list and the latest version of the Q&A change request document. In addition, if there are any eCTD tool vendors here today or are watching online, ICH is kicking off an eCTD vendor tool work group. This is going to be a great opportunity for the eCTD tool vendors to actually get to have some live discussions with the ICH experts on eCTD 4.0 to talk about any questions they have around updating their tools and anything else that's coming down the road. So look for that. It should be posted up on the ICH page in either tomorrow or next week. Now, the ICH stuff is ready to go. So FDA has been busily working to update our systems and test things out so that we can start receiving these 4.0 applications. We have our eCTD 4.0 technical conformance guide, our FDA 4.0 module 1 implementation package published on our eCTD pages on our FDA.gov website. I've got a QR code at the top of this slide, and just like I said that we have the whole URL link on the last slide of the presentation for our ICH documents, we also have the same for the FDA documents. We are also busy updating our eCTD validation and viewing software on the FDA side. So we're currently in the midst of doing UAT testing. And if all goes well, we should be able to start accepting these this summer. Continuing on with our implementation strategy, what we're going to do is we're going to initially support eCTD4-based submissions of new applications only, and then subsequent submissions to those new applications. We're going to tackle being able to transition a 322 application to 4.0 at a later date. Right now, it looks like 2026 when we'll be doing that. All of this is voluntary, by the way. There's no requirement here yet for you to use eCTD 4.0. So while we talk about being able to support 4.0 this summer, you will continue to be able to use 322. We often get questions about how can I submit a sample using eCTD 4.0 to get some technical feedback from FDA before I send in a live submission. We are absolutely going to enable that. We do it today for eCTD version 322 samples. And what we're going to do is we're going to expand that process to allow you to send in 4.0 sample submissions as well. As far as the timing, we are aligning that with when we're going to allow, be able to support 4.0 live submissions. At the same time, we'll also open it up for samples to come in. I've put up the page, our eCTD sample page up here, so you know how to get to it easily. That is the page that's going to be updated to give specific 4.0 instructions for sending in a sample. So just check back there in a couple of months. We're going to put out a Federal Register notice officially announcing support for eCTD 4.0. So when you see that, you know you can start sending them in. You know you can go to the sample page and you should see that it's updated and so forth. Here are the two URLs as promised. The top one has all the eCTD4 implementation guide specification packages and information at the ICH level. The lower link is our regional FDA information for that. How can you prepare for 4.0? These are our recommendations. Discuss 4.0 development plans within your organization. Does your organization understand the 4.0 specifications, right? Particularly those that are on the IT side of it. Is there a plan for transitioning to 4.0? Know that you can send in questions. If you have questions, send them in. If there are questions relating to the ICH materials, there's an email address up on that ICH page where you can send those questions. If your questions are more toward regional, toward FDA specific implementation, we have our eCTD4 page, which was just on the prior slide. Know where to find eCTD4 information. And I hope that this presentation goes a long way in covering that, if that is a gap that you have right now. And then, know that you can submit sample 4.0 submissions for technical feedback. So here's a poll question. We're very curious. We really want to know, what to expect coming into FDA this year and over the next couple of years. So we thought it'd be good to ask here this question. So my company, and maybe I get a show of hands in the room if you know, and I know those online will be able to do this electronically. But for this poll question, my company plans to submit an eCTD4 submission in 2024. See a show of hands if anyone knows if their company. All right, we got one. That's excellent. Maybe. B, 2025. Okay. C, 2026. All right. Or D, you just, you don't know yet. Right? Yeah. All right. So in summary, to close it out, eCTD4 builds upon the success of version 3.2.2 through items like enhanced document replacement, harmonized submission unit file, utilization of controlled vocabularies, the ability to rename documents, context groups, those keyword display values. eCTD4 is ready to implement. That's what we're doing right now here at FDA. We're in the home stretch. And FDA has published all the documents, all the materials needed for the eCTD publishing industry to be able to update and roll out their products to industry to be able to use. And we have our eCTD website there at the bottom, which not only has information about the current version 3.2.2, but also the links to 4.0. All right, thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you, Jeff. No problem. Good morning, everyone. My name is Seyum Sanai. I lead the FDA CDER NextGen portal program, and delighted to be here. And we continue to provide the information session, sharing sessions through this kind of conferences. So with that, how many of you are familiar with the CDER NextGen portal? Okay, great. Yeah, you are, one of, or the few of the 14,000 users leveraging CDER NextGen portal to submit your drug application, as well as congressional reports, and then now we are revamping our capability to have that two-way capability to improve our data and exchange and communication protocols. So with that, I will provide a quick overview of what CDER NextGen portal is, and with that, and then just a quick background, why we started CDER NextGen portal program, and what are the portal product and services we have to enable our key stakeholders like yourself to continue leverage this state-of-the-art capability to accelerate the drug review and approval process. And then we'll share the adoption metrics we see in our end, but we continue to collaborate with users like yourself to gain that feedback and continuously improving the service. So Jonathan presented about eCTD. I will be presenting more about non-eCTD. In this case, the portal platform continuously providing that reducing overhead for sponsors, academia, research institutes, and small business like yourself. So, when I speak in this event, it's been a few years again, continuously gaining that what else can we do to improve that, communication, collaboration, taking advantage of the latest and the greatest technology out there. So with that, just a quick, before CDER NextGen portal, a few of you probably remember you used to FedEx the document to FDA, and then it gets to the document room and scanned, processed, and the data entry. used to take forever to get a response, if the FDA received it or not. So the past few years since we established the NextGen portal, as key stakeholders, you create an account, log into CDER NextGen portal, select the products that you would like to submit, and then based on that, you will find that a simple and then very intuitive user interface to submit your application. And with that, I'll go through it in a little bit detail later on. And then it doesn't stop with that. As soon as you submit, it will get it to the internal workflow, and then the internal workflow directed to the office which receives your submission or reports. So that's where we say, we modernize this thing end to end, starting from the user to, the review division. And then the intent is to accelerate the human drug review approval process. And we do see a lot of positive result on that end, but this is a start. So with that, we refer our portal product and services. The first vertical is simplifying regulatory submissions. With that, I'll provide a little bit detail about research, investigational new drug. This is a research institute or a researcher may have a few people in his team or in her team. What we have done with investigational application builder is, an applicant can come to the portal and build that research IND application throughout the duration of the research and be able to submit from that portal with all electronics capabilities enabled. So, talk about, supporting small business. This is the one we're really proud of. And then we collaborate with most of you to enable it the last 2 years. So with that, another sample product we are really like to discuss about a little bit more is how do we streamline the collaboration? In this case, a good product we think of is the Drug Supply Chain Act product, the Drug Supply Chain Portal, which is upcoming. And what that means is our trading partners directly log into the portal, report the suspected drug incident or stolen, what have you, to FDA. And FDA directly received that through the workflow system and would be able to issue investigation. And then with that investigation, potentially, adulterated drugs could be removed out of the supply chain. So, this previously used to be done probably via email or paper mail or phone call, what have you. But right now, with the partnership we have with our key stakeholders, we are able to modernize this effort. Potentially, this will be a game changer, removing unauthorized product from the market supply chain. So the next vertical is our enabling our industry partners to report congressional mandates. A good example can be the drug shortage notification portal, which driven by the FDASIA mandate. And this is huge, which pretty much saved the day during COVID. The story of the COVID is the ICU units were really struggling to have enough supply to treat their patients. With this notification, the FDA gets the early notifications and then combine that notification with internal analytics, we're able to make those key life-saving decisions every day. So, that healthcare provider can be supplied from different areas, including the national stockpile. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what CDER NextGen portal is becoming, a one-stop shop for, FDA partners to provide that intake and data exchange capabilities. So, as I said, the research investigation on a new drug is our, the flagship product we are really proud of, with few required data elements. The research IND applicant can submit their application fewer than 10 steps. And then this portal is integrated with the clinical.gov system as well to validate. The key here is getting clean, complete, and validated data upfront from upstream to the downstream. So that way, the FDA or the review division would not struggle, cleaning that or cleansing those data sets. So the other area we are continue to build our capability is how can we make the communication near real-time interaction. So we are making headway in that area. If some of you are leveraging the controlled correspondence capability, which is already enabled, and our feedback showing us how pleased you are, and let us know your feedback again. We are, our intent is to enable you with that, communication capability to continuously communicate with your review division, so that way, you can achieve a common goal. So the story is, we've been measuring how we are progressing. When we start the research IND submission, about 50% of the submission used to come via, paper submission or media submission. Fast forward, we are now, the paper submission is falling below 20%, and the portal submission above 80%. So these are the simple metrics we see, but we see there's, again, less than 20 is a good number, but we want to really, put it in a single digit in the next year or so. So that way we can really completely digitalize our solution so the adoption can take over. So the other portal product I mentioned earlier, the upcoming, the Drug Supply Chain Security Act portal, which is really enabling, both FDA and the trading partner to communicate in a two-way fashion. So that way information flow continues. So the intent is, how can we mitigate the risk of supply chain? This is the first step, but it will continue again. So the last, product, we call it in CDER NextGen portal, the drug shortage modernization, or the drug shortage portal. We're approaching it in two angles here. The first angle is the industry drug shortage notification, which has been part of the FDA's mandate. It's been going on for a while. And the other part will be now, we just recently implemented the public drug shortage portal, which anyone from the public, a caregiver or a citizen or healthcare provider now can go ahead, submit that drug shortage they can think of whenever they don't find those drugs in their nearby healthcare provider or, other sources. So, we are approaching it now. This information used to come via phone call or email or paper mail. Now it's becoming more readily available to submit. You don't really have to register to the portal, but you should be able to submit that shortage information. So in a nutshell, what we see here, the progress is we are continue improving our capability, how to receive clean, complete, validated data. And then that's being the sole important part for FDA to have that, when you do have clean, complete, validated data, it will much easier to translate that into insight, so that way information will be readily available to make those key decisions. So business transformation. Our intent is really improve the supply chain and mitigate risk early. So we do see a lot of improvement in that area, and we continue to share that information with the drug shortage website, and then citizens can have that accurate information so they can be a part of that mitigation strategy. So what you see the last 5 years or so, how the adoption is going. It's continued to grow. We are right now reaching about 14,000 users, active users in the portal space. And then that's very encouraging. We feel like there's more to come. And then what else we measure? We do measure, the submission year by year. We are getting close to the 100 submission per year now. So there are, key metrics here showing us this is a value add to you as well as for FDA. So in conclusion, if you need any help, we do have available digital help in CDER NextGen portal, FAQs, and other benefits, how to register, and each product has a help video as well as materials to refer and then continue to leverage this portal. So we always need your help because you are the key partner. Whenever we come to this kind of conferences, we continue to really get that positive feedback, take it, and then we make it as a part of our journey. And then I would like to acknowledge the audience as well as the key people in FDA and our integrators. And thank you. If you have any question, I'll be with Jonathan later on, and appreciate it.
Okay, do we have any questions from the audience? Please line up at the mics with your questions. I'll give you guys a minute. Do we have any online questions?
First question for Mr. Snee. Can a pre-assigned application number for a CBER IND be obtained through the portal? If not, are there any plans to expand the portal offerings to include CBER applications?
So the short answer is not right now. It's only assigning for CDER. But yes, there's a talk how we can collaborate and integrate the CBER need in the future. But the leaderships are discussing how we can make this key capability available to CBER as well.
Thank you. And another question for you. Are there plans to roll out training videos or self-training tools to assist users with various portal activities and how to perform various submissions?
Absolutely. As I referred earlier, the CDER NextGen portal has about 20 plus products. Each product has its own video as well as self-help materials. We solicit your feedback. Let us know how that is helpful, but we continue to have those materials available on the product line area.
Do we have any questions in the room? Somebody must have a question. Yes?
So I'm new to the whole eCTD, EINDs. I'm from the University of California, San Diego. I have submitted both an electronic IND for CDER and CBER, but through the ECG portal. So should I have been using this NextGen for the CDER only? Because it gave me the option on ESG.
Right, good question. So you've submitted an IND, you've sent it to CDER and also to CBER, and you used the FDA Electronic Submission Gateway, the ESG portal. Perfectly fine. Yes, absolutely. What the CDER NextGen portal does is it offers an alternative for research INDs that are being sent to CDER. So what we found is there are some in industry who have find it, I guess, more burdensome to create an ESG account if they don't already have one, or the process to create an account can take a long time. The CDER NextGen portal is great because you can, if you're a new user on the CDER NextGen portal, you can have that account created the same day that you request it, and then you can send over your research IND that way. So it's an option. It's another option to make life easier, as Sayum had he showed in the presentation there.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Do we have any questions online?
Another question for Mr. Resnick. When sending a test submission, should we use an actual package?
So I'm not sure if that's an eCTD specific question. I think it might be. So yeah, if you want to send in a sample eCTD 4.0 submission to us, then number one, we want you to go to our website, fda.gov/eCTD, where you can then find the page all about submitting samples. And that gives instructions about, what you would do, what you would include. But in short, yes, you would publish an eCTD 4.0 submission on your side, and then you'd send it in through the test ESG gateway, and then our CDER eSub team will get it and run our eCTD4 validation software on it, and then send you back an email with the results of that.
Thank you. Another question for you. If the original application submitted in version 3.2.2, can we submit subsequent sequences like deficiency responses in version 4 until the application is approved?
Not yet. So our implementation strategy at FDA is we're first just going to accept new applications and then subsequent submissions to those new applications in 4.0. But if someone already has an application in-house at FDA that's using eCTD 3.2.2, we don't foresee accepting them being able to send in 4.0 submissions until 2026 as the earliest. And we'll have plenty of communications coming out between now and then
to help people prepare.
Thank you. Another question for Mr. Snee. Can more than one user from a given company register for portal access?
Yes, you can register as many users as you wish.
Thank you. And you mentioned there are training tools for the portal activities. Where are the training tools located, or how can they be accessed?
So the training tools are once you logged into the CDER NextGen portal, there are product sections. For example, if you chose to build the investigational research IND application, you should be able to see it, all the trainings under the training and support module.
Are there any thoughts to bring that outside before you log in, just by any curiosity?
Not at this point, because part of it is we need to know who is logging to the portal to submit application, because it's one of the security rules out there. We need to know who we are communicating with. So with that, the logging capability is the key essential part of taking advantage of the available technology.
Any other questions in the room? Okay, it looks like we are out of time. So we will take a 10-minute break and it's 10:42. Come back at 10:52. Thank you.